"We liquidated your portfolio," Dad declared proudly. "$500,000 for family vacation fund." Relatives cheered the windfall. I said simply, "Those were special stocks." The Treasury Department investigation team arrived. The family barbecue was supposed to be a celebration of Dad's recent retirement from his accounting firm. Instead, it became the moment my carefully constructed cover began unraveling in ways I never anticipated. I'd been working undercover for the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network for 3 years. The assignment required complete compartmentalization, even from family. My cover identity as a freelance graphic designer explained my flexible schedule and modest lifestyle, while my real work involved infiltrating sophisticated money laundering operations that threaten national security. The portfolio Dad mentioned wasn't just my investment account. Those stocks were part of a complex federal asset protection program, carefully structured, to maintain my cover while ensuring government resources remain secure. Each transaction was monitored by Treasury systems, each movement tracked by federal algorithms designed to detect unusual activity. "Sarah, you should thank your old man." Dad continued, raising his beer to scattered applause from aunts and uncles gathered around the patio table. "I saved you from yourself. Young people don't understand long-term financial planning." Mom beamed at his financial wisdom. "Your father liquidated everything yesterday. We're booking that European cruise we've always dreamed about." My younger brother Jake nodded approvingly about times someone made smart decisions with that money. Sarah has always been too conservative with investments, kept my expression, neutral years of undercover training suppressing any visible reaction. "How exactly did you access the account?" "Found your laptop open last week?" Dad explained casually. Password was still saved. "Took me 5 minutes to transfer everything to our family vacation fund." He seemed genuinely proud of his initiative. Uncle Robert, Dad's younger brother who had struggled with gambling debts for decades, clapped Dad's shoulder enthusiastically. "Smart thinking, Tom. Family money should benefit the whole family, especially since there is never contributed much anyway," added my cousin Michelle, Dad's sister's daughter who had recently moved back home after her third business venture. "Failed, living that bohemian artist lifestyle while the rest of us work real jobs." The casual dismissal stung though, not for reasons they understood. My bohemian lifestyle involved 18-hour surveillance operations and months-long deep cover assignments infiltrating criminal organizations. The modest apartment and second-hand car were carefully maintained props, essential for maintaining credibility with targets who had instantly spot federal agent markers. Timing worked out perfectly, Mom continued cheerfully. "We leave for Barcelona next week, 3 weeks during Spain, France and Italy. Your father deserves this after 40 years of client service." And Patricia, Mom's sister, who had always resented our family's modest financial success, smiled with satisfaction. Finally, some recognition that family resources should be shared equitably. Sarah's been hoarding money while her parents struggled. The accusation was absurd. My parents lived comfortably on Dad's accounting income and Mom's part-time library work, but family dynamics had never been based on objective reality. "Kind of stocks were they? Anyway?" Jake asked with mild curiosity. "Your portfolio always seemed pretty boring." "Whenever I glimpsed your statements, mixed portfolio," I answered truthfully. "Some government securities, some defense contractors, nothing exciting." What I didn't mention was that those boring stocks were specifically selected federal instruments designed to maintain my cover while protecting classified asset structures. The defense contractor shares were connected to companies I'd investigated for potential sanctions violations. The government securities were part of a complex web designed to ensure my financial profile matched my cover identities, risk tolerance, government stuff. Dad laughed dismissively. "No wonder your returns were so mediocre." I moved everything into real investments, cruise line stocks, hospitality, sector futures, things that will actually grow. The irony was staggering. Dad had liquidated carefully structured federal assets to invest in precisely the kind of volatile tourism stocks that my unit had flagged for suspicious trading patterns. "Dad," I said carefully, "those transactions might trigger some automatic reviews. Government securities have specific reporting requirements." "Don't lecture me about finance, sweetheart," Dad replied with condescending patience. "I've been managing money since before you were born. A few government bonds won't cause problems." Uncle Robert raised his beer again to Tom for finally teaching his daughter about real investment strategy. The family cheered enthusiastically. I smiled and nodded, calculating how quickly Treasury's automated monitoring systems would flag the unauthorized transactions. The sophisticated algorithms monitoring my account would have triggered multiple alerts within hours of Dad's activity. "Sarah, you're being awfully quiet," Mom observed with slight concern. "Aren't you excited about the family vacation? We'll send pictures from every stop?" "I'm sure you will," I replied evenly. What Mom didn't understand was that my calm reaction wasn't resignation. It was professional assessment. Years of undercover work had taught me to compartmentalize emotional responses while evaluating tactical situations. The federal protection protocols surrounding my assets weren't suggestions. They were legal requirements backed by criminal penalties. "Maybe this will teach you about family priorities," Michelle added smugly. "Success should benefit everyone, not just the person who earned it." Jake nodded agreement. "Exactly. Family first, individual ambitions second." Philosophical irony was profound. My individual ambitions involved protecting national financial security from international criminal organizations. My current assignment targeted money laundering networks that had moved over $2 billion in illegal proceeds through seemingly legitimate investment structures. "When do you leave for Barcelona?" I asked conversationally. "Flight departs next Tuesday." Dad announced proudly. "First-class tickets. Thanks to your conservative investment strategy finally paying off." Timeline was significant. Treasury's investigation protocols typically initiated within 72 hours of detecting unauthorized access to protected accounts. Dad's European vacation would coincide perfectly with federal agents. "Preliminary inquiries sounds like perfect timing," I observed, and Patricia studied my expression suspiciously. "You're taking this awfully well, Sarah. I expected more drama about your precious savings account." "Family decisions are family decisions," I replied diplomatically. What Aunt Patricia didn't recognize was that my calm acceptance reflected professional training, not emotional resignation. Undercover agents learn to separate personal feelings from operational realities. The federal protection systems surrounding my assets would enforce themselves regardless of my family's understanding. "That's remarkably mature," Mom said approvingly. "Your father was worried you'd throw a tantrum like when we sold your childhood piano." The piano sale had occurred when I was 16 and genuinely devastating. This situation was categorically different. Federal asset protection violations carried criminal penalties that no amount of family sentiment could mitigate. "People change," I said simply. Jake looked almost disappointed. "I thought you'd at least argue about it. Remember how you used to fight Dad about every financial decision?" Those were different circumstances, different because teenage arguments about allowances and college funds didn't involve federal crimes, different because my current column wasn't acceptance. It was professional detachment, while federal protection systems activated automatically. "While I'm relieved," Dad declared, "family harmony is worth more than investment returns." Anyway, Uncle Robert, already working on his fourth beer, became philosophical. "Money's just paper anyway. Experiences matter more than bank balances." The sentiment would have been touching if not for the federal investigation that was undoubtedly already underway. Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network didn't share Uncle Robert's casual attitude toward unauthorized asset transfers. Speaking of experiences, Mom continued enthusiastically thinking about extending the trip, maybe rent a villa in Tuscany for an extra week. "That sounds expensive," I observed mildly. "Not when you liquidate conservative portfolios properly," Dad replied with satisfaction. "I should have taken control of your investments years ago." Journalistic assumption was both amusing and legally irrelevant. Federal asset protection systems operated independently of family dynamics or parental authority. The sophisticated monitoring algorithms protecting my account recognized only authorized access patterns and specific federal clearance codes. "Dad, can I ask exactly which brokerage you used for the transfers? That fancy online platform you always used?" "Very user-friendly. Once I figured out the navigation, moved everything to our joint account within an hour." The efficiency was impressive and completely irrelevant. Online platforms interfacing with federal protection systems maintain detailed audit trails. That would make Dad's activities perfectly transparent to Treasury investigators. Michelle, who had been quiet while checking her phone, suddenly looked up with interest. Uncle Tom, did you know some investment accounts have special federal monitoring? I just read this article about asset protection programs, government conspiracy theories. Dad dismissed immediately. Sarah had basic stocks and bonds, nothing fancy enough for federal attention. The casual confidence was both touching and profoundly mistaken. My portfolio's mundane appearance was specifically designed to avoid attention, while maintaining compliance with federal protection requirements. Still, Michelle continued scrolling through her phone. Some government employees have special account protections, criminal penalties for unauthorized access. Sarah is a freelance designer. Mom said firmly not a government employee. The statement was technically accurate. My Treasury employment involved complex contractor arrangements, specifically designed to maintain cover identities, but the federal protection systems applied regardless of employment classification details. Right? I confirmed freelance graphic design. Jake laughed. Can you imagine Sarah working for the government? She can barely handle her own taxes. The observation was deliberately cultivated. My carefully maintained image as financially disorganized supported my cover identity while deflecting attention from my actual professional competence is exactly why I took charge of her investments. Dad declared triumphantly, someone needs to make responsible decisions. And Patricia nodded approvingly. Family intervention at its finest. The phrase carried more accuracy than Aunt Patricia realized. The federal intervention already underway would prove significantly more decisive than family financial planning. Dad, I said carefully, platform asked for any additional verification during the transfers, just the usual security questions, your elementary, school name, first pet, that sort of thing. I know all your personal information, anyway. The casual admission was remarkably comprehensive. Dad had essentially confessed to unauthorized access using fraudulent personal information to breach federal asset protection systems. Did you save any transaction confirmations? I asked with apparent innocence. Printed everything. Dad replied proudly, 47 pages of documentation. Very thorough record-keeping. The thoroughness would indeed prove significant though, not in ways Dad anticipated. Federal investigators valued comprehensive documentation, especially when provided voluntarily by suspects. Mom beamed at Dad's organizational skills. Your father kept every receipt, every confirmation number, will have perfect records for tax purposes. Uncle Robert raised his beer again, proper documentation. The family cheered enthusiastically while I calculated federal response timelines. Treasuries, financial crimes, enforcement network typically coordinated with Justice Department. Prosecutors within 48 hours of detecting protection system violations. When exactly did you complete the transfers? I asked conversational yesterday afternoon. Dad replied precisely started around 2 p.m. finished by 4 very efficient process. Once I understood the system navigation, the timeline was significant. Friday afternoon, transfers would trigger automated alerts over the weekend. With federal investigators beginning preliminary assessments Monday morning. Dad's Tuesday, flight to Barcelona would occur precisely when Treasury agents would be initiating contact. Quite a coincidence. I observed mildly kind of coincidence. Michelle asked suspiciously nothing important. I replied, just timing. What I didn't explain was that federal protection systems operated on predictable schedules designed to ensure rapid response to potential security breaches. Dad's vacation timing would create complications he hadn't considered. Sarah, you're being mysteriously cryptic. Mom observed with slight concern. Is something wrong? Everything's fine, I assured her truthfully. Everything was fine. From my perspective, federal asset protection systems would handle the situation according to established protocols. My role was simply to maintain cover while allowing legal processes to proceed normally. Good. Dad declared, because I was worried you'd try to interfere with our travel plans. I wouldn't dream of it. I replied sincerely. The response was completely honest. My federal training emphasized non-interference with ongoing investigations. Personal feelings about family behavior were irrelevant compared to national security protocols. Jake studied my expression curiously, taking this way too calmly. Sarah, kind of weird. Maybe I'm finally growing up, I suggested. Or maybe you're planning something, Michelle added suspiciously. What could I possibly be planning? I asked reasonably. Question was both innocent and accurate. I wasn't planning anything. Federal protection systems would respond automatically according to predetermined protocols. I don't know, Michelle admitted, but you're being too agreeable. It's not like you. Mom looked concerned. Sarah, honey, you're not having some kind of breakdown, are you? Sometimes people react to financial stress with unusual calm. I'm perfectly fine, I assured her, and Patricia remains skeptical. Fine people don't smile when their life savings get liquidated without permission. Family decisions require family acceptance, I replied diplomatically, the philosophical response satisfied most relatives, though Michelle continued studying my expression with obvious suspicion. I think this whole situation worked out perfectly, Dad declared with satisfaction. Sarah gets a lesson in family priorities, we get the European vacation we've earned, and everyone benefits from better financial planning. Uncle Robert raised his beer one final time to family, financial wisdom. The crowd cheered enthusiastically while I smiled and nodded appropriately. None of them understood that their celebration was premature. Tuesday morning arrived with perfect clarity. I was reviewing surveillance reports from my current assignment when my secure phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Airport security detained your father, something about financial investigation, call immediately. I sat down my coffee and checked my personal phone. 17 missed calls from family members, each message increasingly frantic. The secure line rang precisely at 9 a.m., Agent Williams. I answered professionally. This is Deputy Director Harrison, Treasury, Financial Crimes, Enforcement Network. We need to discuss the unauthorized access to your protected account. Sir, I've been expecting this call. Your father and 3 family members are currently being detained by airport security. Customs flag their departure as part of our ongoing investigation into asset protection violations. Understood. What's the current status? Federal prosecutors are reviewing charges related to identity theft, computer fraud, and violations of federal asset protection statutes. We're looking at potential penalties ranging from 5 to 20 years per violation. I see. Agent Williams, this is your family. Do you want to pursue full prosecution? The question hung in the air while I considered 3 years of careful undercover work, months of dangerous assignments, and a lifetime of family dismissal. PD Director, my personal feelings don't override national security protocols. Federal asset protection systems exist for specific reasons, understood. We'll proceed according to standard enforcement procedures. Thank you, sir. I disconnected the secure line and immediately called Mom. Sarah? She answered frantically. Thank God. Your father's been arrested, airport security, federal agents. They're saying something about computer crimes and asset protection violations. Where are you now? Homeland Security detention facility near the airport? They won't let us see Tom. They keep asking about your investment account and whether we knew it was protected by federal law. Mom, I need you to listen very carefully. Call Attorney General Patricia Morrison office immediately. Tell them you need federal criminal defense representation for asset protection violations. Sarah, we can't afford. Mom, this isn't about affordability. This is about federal crimes with mandatory minimum sentences. What are you talking about? Tom just transferred money from your investment account. No, Mom. Dad accessed federal assets without authorization using fraudulent personal information. Those are felony violations of multiple federal statutes, but you're just a graphic designer. How could your accounts be federal assets? The moment of truth arrived with crystalline clarity. Mom, I'm a Treasury Department agent working undercover for the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Those weren't my personal investments. They were protected federal assets, maintaining my cover identity. Silence stretched across the phone line. You're what? I've been working undercover for 3 years infiltrating money laundering operations. The portfolio Dad liquidated was part of a federal asset protection program, designed to maintain my cover while preventing security breaches. Mom, Dad didn't just steal from me. He violated federal asset protection systems, monitored by Treasury Department algorithms. Criminal penalties are severe. Sarah, we didn't know. We never would have, I understand. But federal protection systems don't recognize family exceptions as unauthorized access, regardless of relationships or intentions. What happens now? Federal prosecutors will review the evidence and determine appropriate charges, given the documentation Dad maintained and the voluntary admission of using fraudulent personal information. The case is straightforward. Can you help him? Can't you explain that this was a misunderstanding? Mom, I'm an undercover federal agent whose cover identity was potentially compromised by Dad's actions. My personal feelings don't override national security protocols, but he's your father. I'm a Treasury Department agent sworn to protect federal assets from unauthorized access. Those obligations don't have family exceptions. Mom began crying softly. What should we do? Call the attorney I mentioned. Cooperate fully with federal investigators. Hope that Dad's lack of criminal intent influences the prosecutor's charging decisions. Sarah, please. Mom, I love you. I love Dad, but I can't interfere with a federal investigation that threatens national security operations. Your own family, Sarah, Mom, Dad, liquidated federal assets to fund a European vacation. Those assets were protecting operations that safeguard national financial security from international criminal organizations. This isn't about family, it's about federal law. The line went quiet, except for Mom's gentle crying. I'll call the attorney, she said, finally, the smartest decision right now. Sarah, yes. Are you really a federal agent? His mom? I've been protecting our financial system from international criminal organizations, while maintaining a cover identity as a freelance graphic designer. Why didn't you tell us? Because undercover operations require complete compartmentalization, even from family. We're so proud of you. The statement nearly broke my professional composure. Thank you, Mom. We're so sorry about your father's actions. I know. But federal law doesn't recognize family. Apologies. Dad committed serious crimes, regardless of his intentions. I understand. Mom, I need to go. Federal investigators will want to interview me about potential cover compromise. Call the attorney immediately. We will. I love you all. This situation is beyond family solutions. Now I disconnected and immediately called Deputy Director Harrison, Agent Williams. Reporting, status update, Agent Williams, cover identity potentially compromised. Family members now aware of federal employment quest in reassignment to non-undercover operations. Understood. We'll begin extraction protocols immediately. Thank you, sir. Agent Williams, for what it's worth. You handled this situation with exemplary professionalism, just following protocols, sir. Most agents would have found family situations more challenging to navigate. Federal law doesn't have family exceptions, sir. Indeed, it doesn't port to headquarters tomorrow for debriefing and reassignment consultation. Sir, I sat down the secure phone and looked around my carefully maintained cover apartment. 3 years of props. 3 years of cultivated mediocrity. 3 years of family dismissal while protecting national security. Dad would likely face federal prosecution for computer fraud, identity theft, and asset protection violations. The comprehensive documentation he'd proudly maintained would serve as evidence of his criminal intent. The family vacation fund built from liquidated federal assets would be seized as proceeds of criminal activity. Mom's pride in my actual career felt hollow compared to the federal charges Dad would face. Uncle Robert's philosophy about money being just paper, be tested by mandatory minimum sentencing guidelines. Michelle's suspicious nature had been vindicated in ways she never anticipated. But federal asset protection systems had operated exactly as designed. National security protocols had been maintained. International criminal organizations remained unaware of Treasury Department operations. The family barbecue had indeed been a celebration, just not the kind Dad had planned. Justice carried no obligation to accommodate family sentiment. Federal law remained indifferent to emotional appeals, and Treasury Department agents followed protocols regardless of personal cost. Dad had learned about real investment strategy after all. The lesson's price would be measured in years rather than dollars.